Okay, we are kind of standing around for this I guess triage episode, this retrospective thing. Sure. Yeah. So the premise of this series, which actually ended a while ago, is can we take a default settings map and expensive recipes in marathon mode and get some speedrun achievements. And I was initially thinking that I might, like, I was looking at the 15-hour one, thinking that should be viable. Maybe 13 or 14 hours, pretty reasonable. Ended up getting a rocket slightly after 10 hours, so I was pretty happy about that. And one of the ongoing questions was, like, was I going to be able to take this into something that would take only 8 hours, and what would I have to do better in order to be able to do a marathon on a normal map with biters in just 8 hours. So we put these things were deleted towards the end of the run because we got enough science and cut those. These and also the blue science have been put back for kind of narrative discussion purposes. I think the first thing that worked out really well is this particular map, and like all of like the extra coal, the extra iron, the other iron that we didn't even end up using, and then this spot over here which had basically all the resources we needed and a lot of them all cut quite close together. Like I think this a couple of observations coming out of this. I think I like the, build a first base, get red and green science, wander off somewhere else, and while those are ticking over, because you still need a lot of resources for even red and green in marathon mode, and you need a lot more for blue, and find a place where all of those are more or less close together enough that I can build this kind of base 2 thing. I think the adjustment I might make when I do this again, but I don't know when that's going to be because 8 hours is still quite a while, is to just build all of blue science over here. Like this thing over here, where is it? This pattern here had the original green circuits in the middle, and then when I was belting back green circuits and building red circuits here, I needed somewhere to have coils, and knew that the basic starter patch wasn't going to support enough copper to build green circuits and coils for red circuits. So spent a while hacking this out. I don't know why to do that. I think it didn't feel great at the time, but I think if instead of belting back these green circuits, which we were always belting back, maybe grab a map that also has oil here, which makes the rerolling more difficult, but sure, whatever, we ended up with something like that anyway, and you just make all of the blue science here, because we've got the basic steel here, and that was always the plan. We've got enough iron to be doing cogs and pipes things, and we were kind of doing that anyway because we knew the main base needed support on that, and we've got enough copper to be doing green chips because that was also always the plan. Let's just make blue science over here. And wherever base 2 ends up on any particular map. The other thing that I liked about this was, yeah, these giant forests here, and then also these forests here, which meant that this little section of stuff nestled between these forests never really had to worry about massively polluting any particular bases. I think there were a couple of bases, yeah, we got expanded on down here, and I think there were a couple of other bases over here, maybe one here that needed to be pushed. But otherwise, this is like not a level of pollution of bases that I'm concerned about, like relative to how much we have to get done to launch an expensive mode rocket. So that's the other thing about this map that I particularly liked, is that it's not really a category. This kind of thing is quite possibly even more sensitive to map settings because there's just so much more outposting to do. But yeah, especially happy with how the steel worked out. Like the ability to already having a belt that was going back to base with some amount of steel on it, and then being able to copy paste a pile more steel and just have it end up in the same place is a move that I'm pretty happy with. And I think the efficiency modules as the only pollution mitigation thing seems like it. That worked fine. Other reflections. The All of this buffer strategy needs like a better plan. Like all of this and the steel and then also the plastic were kind of hacked in when I got to that point and realized I needed a thing without really having thought about what the base needed. So that's a thing that could be done better. Having just a better plan for base 2 and how the blue fits together, the blue science, also a thing. I think maybe I need more steel. if I'm planning on getting this from 10 hours down to under 8 hours, I quite possibly need some more steel. The green ships, however, I was expecting this to be more of a thing, and maybe because I like overcompensated for that, ended up with way too many of those. And I think also this moduling of green chips up to assembler 3s and 16% productivity, probably not worth it. By the time I'm looking at like how many green chips I'd already buffered, how many I was getting, like I wasn't getting all that many free because by the time I was upgrading these to assembler 3s, we were already very late in the game. And then also the time it took me to do that here, and then wandering also all the way back over here to do that here as well. I'm not sure that was actually worth the time. A thing that could have been moduled better, in retrospect, because someone asked about this in the comments as well, is could LDS have been moduled better? And that was the thing I was thinking about at the time, but hadn't actually done any math for, and looked at it later, and if we're looking at all the resources, it'll take the LDS like an hour and a bit to be positive on kind of all resources, lumping a resource of each kind together into a sort of malleable thing. But if you're just looking at plastic, and I suspect that most of these runs will be bounded by plastic, the plastic investment of 2 modules into LDS, expensive mode LDS, pays off in about 20 minutes just because of how ridiculously expensive and plastic LDS is. And so I think that might be a thing. Module all the LDS, but the other thing that struck me is if I start making LDS with a pair of prodmod 2s each, and then getting towards the end of Purple Science, pull all those prodmods out and feed them into the Purple Science as inputs. I mean, all these are going to be moduled as well, these just because whatever. Then the cost-benefit analysis of the prodmods in LDS basically has no cost because all of those modules still get used as inputs for the small amount of Purple Science we need, so that might be a thing. But yeah, generally pretty happy with this. I think that's most of... I think the other thing that's going to be more difficult is figuring out exactly how many red circuits I need and at what point to cut those red circuits, because I suspect plastic is still going to be the thing I'm short on. And I don't imagine... I mean, maybe even prioritize the plastic into the LDS and then cut... cut plastic into LDS when I've made enough LDS, and hopefully not overmake yellow science because if I can only feed exactly the number of drone frames I need. That might be in... maybe, but then again, yeah, things that aren't great, because I still need a lot of red circuits for a lot of different things, including all the purple science stuff, which I don't really want to be slow on. But yeah, I think that's most of the retrospectives. I'm not actually sure whether or not assembler 3s are worth it at all, because there are... like, I like my 16% productivity bonuses. I especially like doing RCUs with 16%, but I'm not sure that's worth the extra marathon investment of purple science required to unlock these things. I also don't know whether I really want flamethrowers. Like, flamethrowers, where do we put them? Over here? And they're doing... you know, it's not a death world. I don't have death world sized bases to push. So pushing... and also this was... yeah, this is... I mean, without the big biters, this is still a completely reasonable size of base to just go and push. And also, these runs are longer. They're like 8 hours long, as opposed to maybe 4 or 5 for a Death World build. So, I don't know if these flamethrowers are also going to justify the expensive mode research cost. And then, put them down here? Yeah, these are also still not especially great attacks. Maybe we could have just defended all of this with landmines, because it did take an annoying while to set up all of this stuff with completely new patterns and like these pipes and connecting all of that, and then yeah, all of this faff. I mean, we could have just done this with roboports over here and landmines in various crucial places, and that would have been a whole lot easier to set up. Yeah, I think I like this setup with this solid fuel buffer, but I should do some math about how big I think I need this buffer to be, because I don't think it needs to be that big, and it definitely doesn't even look like we've used that much of it. But yeah, I think that's more or less everything there was to say about the reflections of this thing. Yeah, I like the base 2 plan. Might even attempt to go even harder on the base 2 plan by building not just green ships and cogs here in the outset, but also just all of blue science and shipping all the blue science back to the main base. Yeah, do I want to build roboports here as well? Probably not. Do I want to build... I mean, base 2 is also the place where I am doing expansion when I'm copying and pasting things, just because of how the patch sizings end up working out. Like, by the time I've built red and green science, all of the main base, all of the starter patches are pretty much fully mined on expensive mode. So maybe drone frames get built here as well. But yeah, there's some interesting things to patch together. Definitely had I not been faffing around trying to figure out what to do, I could have got this run in under 10 hours. But the question is, how much tidier does it need to be to get down to 8? Because it definitely looks like a thing that would be possible with a decent plan. I had other stuff. Oh, you had blue circuits over there, didn't I? That's what that part of the base was. Sure. But yeah, we'll worry about that later, because an 8-hour run is still a thing that's kind of tricky to iterate. Maybe we'll do kind of like a one run to bots and see if I can get that done reliably in 4 hours. And yeah, the marathon stuff, cool.